This after an op-ed in Campus Reform about loopholes in existing guidelines. Emily Sturge of Campus Reform.
No more hidden agendas in the classroom. That means no more surprise political activism that comes after students are already enrolled in the class and tuition is paid. So overall, major win for transparency, major win for students. Students can now decide if a class is right for them before enrolling, before spending thousands of dollars in tuition. And of course, that's a major win for taxpayers too, because taxpayers are funding our public universities.
A course at the University of Florida explores the social construction of reproductive values. Chris Woodward has more.
This is a sociology course, and it's framing human reproduction as a matter of social interpretation rather than a biological fact. Jessica Ogren of Campus Reform.
The fact that I'm having to get on radio about this is kind of ridiculous, but here we are in 2026.
Ogren added that this is part of a much broader trend at schools in red states and blue states.
If this is happening at Florida, I can't even imagine what classes at, like, say, Harvard or Yale are like. The fact that this is such a common trend that Campus Reform has been reporting on is genuinely concerning, and just hopefully, my generation pushes back on it.
When asked what students should do about these kinds of classes, Ogren recommended students avoid courses like this if possible. If you can't, she urged students to speak to administration or a local policymaker.
President Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the BBC can go to trial next year. Jared Halpern has more from the White House.
A federal judge in Florida rejected the BBC's request to delay proceedings, instead setting a trial for February of next year. President Trump filed a $10 billion lawsuit in December accusing the British broadcaster of defamation and unfair trade practices for the way a speech he delivered before the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021, was edited in a documentary. The president says the footage should have included him telling supporters to demonstrate peacefully. The BBC plans to file a motion to dismiss the lawsuit, arguing the U.S. court lacks jurisdiction. The judge says such a motion is premature.
Hey, I'm curious. Would you help AFA continue to stand in the gap for future generations of our families? We rely on the generous gifts of people like you, and you can help keep the mission of AFA going strong well into the future with planned giving through the AFA Foundation. If you have questions, we can answer them and then help you set up a charitable gift annuity or a bequest. You'll leave a legacy that will impact your grandkids and beyond. Visit afafoundation.net to find out more.
We inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. Walker Wildman's got you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I get you Tuesdays and Thursdays. Appreciate you joining the show. Boy, we've got a lot happening at the Patriot Academy campus this week. I got to tell you, tonight we've got a candidate forum for our local candidates in the county we're in and the county we're right next to. And it is really cool to see the scholars at Patriot Academy. Those are the students we have for a full year. They come live on campus and get trained in communication and apologetics, biblical worldview, leadership, all of those things. And they're going to host the candidate forum. So they get to actually ask the questions, moderate it, MC it, all that good stuff. It's going to be cool. So county judges, county commissioners, JPs, all those different races. So I mentioned that right up front on the program because local. I hope you are involved in your local races, your local elections. Hope you're getting to know some of those people that are in those positions or that are running for those positions, or maybe as a listener to At the Core, consider running yourself. Maybe it's too late this year, but you can be planning for 2 years from now. We need good people with with good, strong convictions and understanding of the Constitution and property rights and all these things in those local offices, school board as well. So we're doing that tonight. But 2 nights ago, that's what I want to talk about most of our time today. Right after I got off the air with you on Tuesday afternoon, I went to help with an event that we hosted here on the campus that I couldn't talk a lot. I couldn't say who everybody that was coming because we had a converted Muslim to Christianity that has been beaten nearly to death, chased down, harassed for decades. Because it's not a religion, it's a cult, and if you try to leave, they will, kill you or humiliate you or destroy you. And that's what happened to Nasar Hassan in England, and he just happened to be in country. Save the Persecuted Christians had brought him over for some events in the Dallas area, and my friend Frank Gaffney, who is one of our professors at the Institute, Patriot Institute here at the Patriot Academy campus in Constitution City, Texas. Frank is a just expert on national security, on essentially world geopolitics, and we are thrilled to have brought him on to be a part of our team as part of our national security partnership, specifically because of this issue of fighting Islam and the invasion of Islam in America. And so he knew Nasar and brought Nasar down. And Tuesday night it went 2 hours. It could have gone 5 hours. I'm telling you, it was really interesting. Packed house. I mean, we had as many as we could get in our house chamber. If you're new to At the Core, not familiar with what I'm talking about when I say Patriot Institute, Patriot Academy, all those things, we have a 177.6 acre, 177.6 acre campus for Patriot Academy, and we actually have a city here now that we will incorporate, but we're already a city called Constitution City, Texas. We're in an unincorporated area of Kendall County, Texas. So we're building this campus for the purpose of educating not just young people, but everybody. I mean, you can come to the campus and spend 3 days with us, getting a Patriot experience, legislative simulation, really learning how a constitutional republic works, getting trained on how to win school board races back home and city council and all that, and we'll send you back home fired up, man. This is basically your BUDS training for the Navy SEALs of civics. And so at this campus, every once in a while, we get to do special events like this, and we rebuilt what looks like the House chamber of the Texas Capitol. It's sort of a combination. We do our programs in state capitals around the country, so we've got a lot of experience in what works well in terms of logistics within a House chamber. So we designed our House chamber to be sort of a combination of mostly the Texas House. The dais looks just like the Texas House dais. Had some really good Amish carpenters from Pennsylvania come down and do that part. And then the rest of the room looks a little bit like the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. We've got those paintings around the room. And then a little bit like the Arizona State Senate. The desks are a little bit more like that than the Texas House desks. It's pretty cool. You have to come see it or watch some of our videos online. But it's also great for just hosting special events like this. And we packed that place out Tuesday night for a talk about what to do about Sharia law. It was essentially a special episode of the show that I do on Monday nights at 6 o'clock called The Tavern. I call it The Tavern because in the founding era, the taverns were the places you went and had these revolutionary discussions about, what are the strategies and tactics that could actually defeat tyranny and defend freedom. And so on The Tavern, that's what we talk about. We bring guests on. We talk about, what do we need to do to save freedom in our country. And so we basically got out of the studio and we broadcast it from our chamber, and we had a revolutionary discussion about the strategies and tactics that it's going to take to defeat the invasion of radical Islam. And frankly, I should say that more correctly, defeat the invasion of Islam, not just radical Islam in our country. And so that was power-packed 2 hours. In fact, it was so good and the discussion was so important. It's basically a brainstorming session. So we had, several hundred people there watching and then asking questions from the audience, but the panel was essentially a tavern-type discussion. Like you're sitting in the corner of the tavern and you're kind of whispering almost, saying, okay, how are we going to do this? Like what are we up against? How strong is the enemy? What happens if we lose? How bad will it be? Who are our friends? Who are our allies? Who are our enemies? And what are the tactics that we can use to win? And so that discussion, sort of just laying out the groundwork began with Bill Federer. And you're probably familiar with Bill, AmericanMinute.com. Love Bill Federer, man. I learn every time he opens his mouth. I learn something. And he opened up the evening with a history of Islam and telling the story. Basically gave a lot of the facts about Muhammad that people don't talk about. You know, that he was a pedophile, married a 9-year-old. Yes, consummated the marriage. I think he even married her, if I remember right, at 6. Consummated the marriage at 9 years old. So that's the religion of Islam. Okay, that's what it's built on. Is a guy that waged war, that divided communities, that destroyed Jewish sects and communities, and just a horrible foundation for anything that would call itself a religion of peace. And anyway, so Bill kind of went through in very short order the history of that, and then this guy Nassar Hassan, who was our special surprise guest from England, told his story, and I was not speechless because it's hard to make me speechless, but close. I was close to speechless, and especially when by the time he got done and he talked about how bad it is he basically said England has fallen, the UK has fallen, Europe has fallen, Australia's close. When he went through the facts and talked about how many of the major cities have Islamic mayors, what the percentage of the population is now, how they've taken over, and what it means to your life, what it means to your lack of religious freedom, to your lack of freedom. No women's rights. I mean, if you're a woman, if you're one of these, I'm going to be nice in the way I say this, but just useful idiots, to use a Stalin term, and Nassar used that the other night, white liberal women that do not understand what you are helping to usher into America when you are anti-ICE, when you are anti-legal immigration and supporting illegal immigration dominated by Islamists that want to dominate you. If you're one of those people, well, you're probably not, or you wouldn't be listening to this program. But if you are, would you please just kind of shake yourself out of your slumber for a minute? Would you just, do some jumping jacks or something and change your state and figure out a way to wake yourself up, because you are the problem. In fact, one of our speakers that night, Chris Dunham, who is our dean of our Patriot Institute here and came from India 40 years ago, did it the right way. That was one of his comments. He said, I've been fighting for the American dream and defending American values for 40 years. I forget how many countries he's been to. He preaches all over the world. He's an incredible evangelist, an incredible apologist, but he loves his country. He loves America, and he hates seeing what we're letting happen. And he said, I thought, I did not realize that the number one threat to America would end up being white liberal women. And he explained why that was the case. But it's fairly obvious if you recognize how they are the ones that are out there, trying to prevent our law enforcement from deporting rapists and pedophiles and murderers and gang members and drug dealers. It's illogical, doesn't make sense, but then again, that's what Satan does, right? That's what the enemy does, is he creates confusion, he creates deception, and anyway, I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole here. So anyway, Nassar. So we had Bill Federer, Nassar Hassan, Frank Gaffney, who I mentioned earlier, who helped with the strategy of this and recognizing what we're up against. Chris Dunham, who helped to put it in sort of a world context and gave his little bit of his story coming here from India. And then we didn't get time. I mean, it was 2 hours, and we were already out of time, just given some of the history and the lay of the land and why this is such an important issue. And so the next morning, we had slated Frank Gaffney and Bill Federer to get 2 hours each with the students, the scholar students, and we went ahead and invited the audience back, and some of them came back the next morning and spent another 4 hours talking about this. I'm giving you all of this to say this is the fight of our generation. This is the threat to our way of life. This is the threat to the Constitution and the American system of government. Islam will destroy America. Charlie Kirk was right when he said Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. It's not. And our event was called "What to Do About Sharia Law," and listen, most people are going to be talking about it as Sharia law. We can't have Sharia law, and most politicians are then going to go, well, yeah, I'm not for Sharia law either because it undermines the Constitution. It's a whole new legal system and way of life, and takes away women's rights and all those things. But let's be very clear. Let's be very honest. Islam is the problem. Sharia is just the path, and that's what it means. It's just literally the implementation. So we have to get better at understanding what does the First Amendment support and protect, and what does it not allow for. And you cannot, one of the lines that came out the other night, and I think this was Federer, if I remember right, he was talking about when Dwight Eisenhower said you can't use the Bill of Rights and hide under the shadow of the Bill of Rights to destroy the Bill of Rights. We're going to see through that, and we're going to prevent that. Today, 70 years later, in the same way, I would say, you cannot hide under the shadow of the First Amendment or the protection of the First Amendment and freedom of religion to destroy the First Amendment and freedom of religion for everybody else in the country. You see, with Islam, it is a religion of peace once they've conquered everyone else, once everyone is willing to submit to Islam. And that, friends, is what we face. And therefore, we have to understand the battle before us. And then we have to constitutionally get educated about the history of the First Amendment. What did the founders actually mean by freedom of religion? And did it mean that you get to do anything and everything you want as long as you call it a religion? Well, clearly the answer to that is no. I mean, there's been obvious examples in history. We told the LDS and the Mormons you cannot have polygamy and fought that fight 100 years ago and made the Mormon Church come into compliance with constitutional protections for our definition of marriage and these other things. I don't think that tact is quite going to work with Islam. We're not going to be able to say Islam's okay as long as you're not doing honor killings and taking away women's rights and not doing pedophilia and child marriage. Everything else is okay. That's not going to work. That's been the tact up to now. And we have watched England and Australia fall for that. Because what they lie to us and say, under Turkey, they can lie to us and say, yeah, we're not going to do any of that stuff. We just want to live under the Constitution. We just want American freedom. We just want American values. And we're like you. We're against gay marriage, and we're against some of these other horrible things like abortion. And so you should love us and team up with us. And they've managed to do that. And then they will turn the tables. And then when they get enough votes and they have enough of a majority and they outpopulate us, then they will enforce removing every other religion and removing women's rights. Anyway, we'll talk more about it when we come back. 888-589-8840 is the phone number. 888-589-8840. You're listening to At the Core.
You will know them by their fruits. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. The state of Massachusetts is on track to set mileage limits for drivers. The bill is SB 2246. It directs the state to set targets for reducing total vehicle miles traveled statewide, targets that will be incorporated into transportation planning, infrastructure investment, and long-term emissions policy, all in line with climate alarmism, of course. This comes from the same playbook as 15-minute cities, limiting human mobility, and efforts to control the whole of human life by central planners. For our own good, of course. There are evil people and seducers, waxing worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. The Massachusetts legislation is further evidence of that fact.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt, and it stressed me out. But what I thought was a solution turned out to be a problem. I kept hearing ads about debt settlement that seemed too good to be true. And actually, it was. When I called, they told me to stop paying my bills. That didn't sound right to me at all, so I hung up. Later, I found out that debt settlement is bad, real bad. Then I learned that there is a right way to pay off your credit cards It's called a debt management program from the great team at Trinity. Trinity had a plan. In the end, I paid off my bills, I saved thousands, and I even improved my credit score.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-788-1813.
Many of you remember 1976 when we had the bicentennial. I know I do. Here in our country, our beloved America, as we celebrated 200 years. Well, now we're celebrating 250 years. We're going to go to some great places on our tours this year in June and September. We're going to Washington, D.C. We're going to Williamsburg. It's going to be a wall-to-wall trip of American history and learning about our Christian heritage. We're also going to Boston this year. So for those of you who remember 1976, I know there are some of you who remember the year 1776. We want you to come along with us on this particular tour because you're going to be a special guest of ours. So if you want information on our tours, go to wildmongroup.com, WILDMON group.com, WILDMON group.com, and we hope to see you on one of our 2026 Spiritual Heritage Tours.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution coach. And speaking of being a Constitution coach, if you're not one, you need to sign up. PatriotAcademy.com. Sign up as a coach. It's free. I predict, I really believe this, I predict that the coaches for Patriot Academy, the Constitution coaches for Patriot Academy, will be the vehicle to defeat Islam. We have to educate our friends and our families and our neighbors on the threat and then how to win. And so we're going to have more than a 10-minute or even 2-hour discussion about Islam and the threat that it is, and then the constitutionality, the history of what the First Amendment protects and doesn't protect. That takes a little bit of time, and we're good at that. We're good at doing Constitution classes that are entertaining and empowering and educating and give people the equipping that they need to go out and actually do something in their community. So we've done that with a couple of million people. We've done it with over 10,000 classes. This is going to be a vital, vital issue for us to cover in the next few weeks and months. In Texas, if you're a listener to AFR in Texas, I want to encourage you to vote next week, early vote in the Republican primary, and make sure you vote for Prop 10. Prop 10 is, not to not allow for Sharia law in Texas. Very simple. No Sharia law in Texas. And that should be easy, and we need 70, 75, 80% yeses on that. It needs to be a big win so that we can use that going into the legislative session next year and throughout this year in terms of public relations and winning this fight. So the reason I think the Constitution coaches are such a big deal is because what we're really good at is getting people together for 4, 6, 8 weeks in a row on a Monday night or Sunday afternoon or whatever works for your community for 2 hours, and putting on the coffee and cake, having watch the videos, whatever the class is for that week for an hour, where you're really getting some great entertainment and education, and then spend an hour talking about what to do with it, making plans, and then going out and doing that. Okay, that's what we're good at. So if you want to be a part of that, you don't have to have any background, any experience. You don't have to have a law degree or any of that kind of stuff. You just have to have the ability to do the power play. Turn on the power, hit play. Let the experts like David Barton and Bill Federer and Frank Gaffney, and we got a lot of Charlie Kirk in there from when he helped to record these things, to Bob McEwen and Jeremy Boring and Jack Hibbs and Rob McCoy and all these people teaching. That's what will happen in the videos. But then you just open up the discussion and let the group talk about it. And it may just be 6 or 7 people or 2 or 3 people in your living room. Might be 100 people at your church. It could be, we have classes going at Harley-Davidson dealerships, bait and tackle shops, and even funeral parlors. Yes, I got a coach that's a funeral director, and he has classes in his funeral parlor, which sounds weird and creepy and morbid. But Democrats vote dead people, so maybe we'll win some converts there in the. Okay, seriously, I don't know where he does it in the funeral parlor, but I laughed when he told me he was doing it there. My point is, you can get together anywhere. All right, you can get together in a parking lot somewhere. I don't care. Just get together with people, put on these videos, and then move people to action. And so what we're doing right now, what I recommend is that you get sign up as a coach, get these classes for free. And then put on a biblical citizenship in modern America class as soon as possible. Get it started. And by the end of your biblical citizenship class, we'll have the Rebuilding Liberty course ready with the new insert. So we just filmed this thing the other night with Frank Gaffney and Bill Federer. I'm working on some additional stuff so that we really hit this Islam issue in the Rebuilding Liberty course. And over the next year, that's the one you're going to want to do in your communities to get people educated and equipped on this. And then make sure you're listening to At the Core. I'm going to make this a topic covered quite a bit over the next few weeks and months because we're going to have to get educated on this. I'm going to have some special guests on. We will talk more and more about it. What happened to us the other night was we got the conversation allowed us to at least get a handle on the issue, like making sure that we put all that stuff on the table in terms of the history of Islam, the history of the First Amendment in America, the way that Islam works. Like, what do they do? How did they manage to take over England the way that they did? How have they marched across Europe once again? Why Australia? And then what are they doing in Minneapolis and in Dearborn, Michigan, and in these communities where they've already taken over in the United States? And what is their plan for Congress and for how to undermine and ultimately change the Constitution in America? So we got at least the tip of the iceberg to identifying the issues, and now what we're doing is we're working on the solutions and then getting those out there. The first action item is for Texas to overwhelmingly pass Prop 10 and prevent Sharia law in Texas. That's step one. And then step two is for people to sign up as coaches and start getting people together. You've got to bring people together. You cannot just listen to the radio at home and by yourself or with just you and your spouse. You have got to get in community. You've got to get other people that are motivated to be part of the solution. And then go out there and work on your legislature, your school board, your city council, your county commissioners to prevent Sharia law in your community. Broken Arrow just gave us an example of how to do this. Now, they're using zoning and some of these, things that I'm usually against in terms of land regulations, but they are using those tools. They've been using them against us for years. Now they're finally using them against these Islamists and preventing some of these. They're not even calling them mosques, but that's what they are. These Islamic centers are what they're calling them. And oh my goodness, the commercials are beautiful. They're so wonderful. Oh, it's just about community and we just want to love our neighbors and we're coming together. And they are so good at the marketing on this, and it's all a bunch of baloney. It's all an attempt to force their way of life on us. And once again, I want to say to you women out there, you do not want this. You, of all people, need to be rising up and saying, no, you will not Sharia my Texas. You will not Sharia my United States. You are not going to make me wear a burqa. You are not going to, marry our 12-year-old daughters. You are not going to make pedophilia normalized. You are not going to make it okay to beat women. That's what Islam does, folks. I'm just telling you the facts. You better wake up, people. You better wake up. This guy the other night from England, he actually said, because I was very curious about this, what he thought our timeline was. How far behind England are we? How far behind France are we? How far behind Australia are we? He said, I don't know if I agree with this yet. I really don't know. He said less than 5 years. Let that sink in for a minute. Now, this is a guy that's been beaten by his former Islamic brothers for leaving the cult. This is a guy that's been nearly killed, had his family threatened, had his daughters threatened, had his car destroyed multiple times. I mean, had to move into hiding for years. He says We're less than 5 years behind them. Now, I would initially knee-jerk reaction say, no, we're more like 20 years behind them. But do you know how many mosques have been built in Texas? 200 and something. And in just the last couple of years, 65 new ones in Dallas, just in the DFW area. And they're going into small communities too. So I'm gonna hold my judgment on what I ultimately think we have. I don't know that it matters, other than to give you a sense of urgency as the audience, to wake people up, to wake pastors up. You know, part of the challenge we've got here is the niceness of Christianity, the sweetness of Christianity, the sugariness. Is that a word? Sugariness of our churches and our communities, our churches and our pastors and our faith, our Christianity, our denominations. Because here's the thing, and this is what you got to realize, and this is straight from Islamists. They see that as weakness. They don't see you as being nice or kind or sweet. They see you as being weak. They see our compliance and our tolerance and our sweetness as weakness, and therefore they take advantage of it. I think we need to be salty, not sweet. I think we're called to be salty. Maybe salt and light rings a bell. Not sweet and hiding in the corner, afraid to confront. We need to be salt and light. And at this point, we need to be glaring lights, like, 100 million lumens light. And salty, willing to speak truth, willing to speak biblical truth, and willing to be the Christendom that stopped the advance of Islam in the past. Be tough, be strong, be what's the word I'm looking for? Not ethical. It's be a people of moral clarity. That's what I'm looking for. If you are so sweet and sugary that you are welcoming in a religion that takes away women's rights, when Christianity is what created women's rights and expanded women's rights around the planet. If you as a Christian are willing to let another quote-unquote religion that's really a political ideology masquerading as a religion, if you are willing to let them take away women's rights in your neighborhood, in your community, in your state, and in our nation, shame on you. You are being the wicked and slothful servant in the parable of the talents, because here's the thing. You have been given the talent of freedom. You have been given the responsibility and the stewardship of a free nation that others fought and died for, so that your daughters could grow up in freedom, so that your communities could have the freedom that we've enjoyed. And if you sit back and let this invasion destroy that, woe to you. Woe to you for calling evil good. Woe to you for calling good evil. And what I mean by that is for calling those who are willing to stand and willing to fight and willing to say no, willing to draw the line in the sand, for calling them, intolerant or bigoted or Christian nationalist or, incalcitrant or whatever you come up with. You're calling good evil when you do that, because we need some good right now. We need some righteousness. We need some righteous anger. We need to be angry and sin not, but righteous anger for what's happening to our country, for what will happen to our daughters and to our sons and to our nation. And maybe I'm a little bit salty today because I had a granddaughter born today. And instead of just being filled with joy for her and for my son and daughter-in-law who had her, and for us to have another member of the family, we've considered her our fifth grandchild since we knew that she was in the womb, because that's when, life begins at conception. But now that she's out breathing with the rest of us, instead of just having joy for her, I'm concerned for her. I don't want her to grow up in an Islamic state. I don't want her to grow up without rights. I don't want her to grow up being a second class or not even really a recognized citizen, which is what happens in nations where Islam dominates. So I know some of you do not like my tone today, and I know some of you, there's no doubt, Right Wing Watch and all these other leftist organizations are going to take a lot of what I'm saying today and beat me over the head with it and possibly beat American Family Radio over the head with it, so I apologize to the Wildmons if I'm being too blunt. But I think we're at this moment where we're going to have to call it what it is. Tolerance is not going to win the day. Tolerance is going to lose this. So we are going to have to define good and evil. We're going to have moral clarity on this. We're going to have to have enough common sense to look at what's happening in Europe, look at what's happening in Australia, and say, not here. We're not going to let it happen on our watch in our country. And we're not going to allow our fellow Christians and our neighbors and our quote-unquote leaders to, in the name of niceness and kindness and sweetness, lead us into tyranny and lead us into captivity. Just not going to do it. Not going to allow it. We're going to call their evil what it is, evil. We're not going to call it good. And we're going to speak to what is good. And we're going to value in our 250th birthday here in our country the 250 years of liberty that has existed. And no, it didn't exist for everyone that was here from the beginning. We had to make it a more perfect union. And thankfully, because of the values of this country, the majority in this country has always expanded rights to the minority. It was absolutely mostly men voting on the 19th Amendment to expand those voting rights and guarantee those voting rights to women. It was mostly whites voting on the 13th Amendment to ban slavery and expand freedom to blacks. Mostly, it was entirely 21 and up voting to expand voting rights to 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. 26th Amendment. So I just think that's a rich history to recognize that we, the majority in America, because of our value system, have expanded rights to the minority. That's a good track record, folks. That's something we should be proud of. So standing on the shoulders of giants and standing on those who were willing to stand for those kind of things and willing to expand freedom and rights, I will fight against those who want to contract freedom in our country and remove it from women. I will stand against those who pushed a transgender agenda, taking away the rights of women in sports to compete fairly. And I will stand against the Islamists who want to take away the rights of women in our country. I hope you'll stand with us. I hope you'll be willing to take on this fight, because it's here whether you want it or not. And it's going to be the fight for the next couple of decades, I hate to tell you. All right, we'll be right back. You're listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we believe God is raising up a movement across our nation and around the world who hold fast to the inerrancy of Scripture and the hope of holiness. We do this through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, certificate programs, and even training for lay people. So whatever your next step is in being equipped for ministry, we're here for you. And if you believe these are the kind of pastors we need leading churches in the future, we invite you to think about giving to Wesley Biblical Seminary. Learn more about us at wbs.edu.
Without even seeing them show up, I could feel like the darkness.
Jamie Sanchez is another Christian business proprietor who has been targeted for his faith. His Drip Cafe was opened to serve and help the homeless of downtown Denver.
We believe sex outside of marriage and homosexuality is a sin in God's eyes. And the enemy and his minions decided to use that as a platform.
Jesus told us persecution would come.
I would see them, just the rage and the hate. I pictured them doing that at the foot of the cross to Jesus. And I just remembered what he said, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." And so I had to position my heart that way.
The Jamie Sanchez story is one of the videos of the Impact series at stream.afa.net.
It's been a crazy, crazy ride.
See Jamie's story and much more at stream.afa.net.
While in the emergency room with my wife, as she was struggling with the COVID-19 virus herself, and I looked at her and I said, "Are you scared?" And she said, "A little bit, but I've been through worse."
The Certainty of Mankind's History with Uncertainty, an article by Peter Rosenberger.
And then, as her fever was approaching almost 103, she started singing "In Christ Alone." I place my trust and find my glory in the power of the cross. And that's how she has anchored herself in the certainty of Christ through her huge medical journey that has included 80 surgeries, both of her legs amputated, 100 doctors have treated her, 12 hospitals, and now the COVID-19 virus. And so when we live with those kinds of uncertainties, anchoring ourselves in Christ alone, that's the only place we can run to where there is certainty.
To read this article and more, visit afa.net/The Stand.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution coach, talking about the threat of Islam and how to fight it. What can we do to keep America from going the way of Europe and Australia and the other nations that have fallen? Great panel the other night. But I forgot to mention, by the way, the event that I was describing. We called it What to Do About Sharia Law. And it is available on my Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and Google, or not Google, if you go to YouTube and search for Patriot Academy, go to the Patriot Academy channel, you'll see the live stream of that event. Or you can go to my Facebook page, and it's easy to watch there as well. You can look for Patriot Academy, or you can go to Patriot Rick Green. That's my Facebook channel handle, Patriot Rick Green at Facebook. And just scroll down and you can see the What to Do About Sharia Law conversation. All right, let's head to the phones. 888-589-8840 is the phone number. 888-589-8840. First up is Phil in Texas. Phil, go ahead, man.
Yes, thank you, Rick, for calling out the Islamic religion or political system for what it is. It's both. Political system couched in religion. And I've been a missionary in France for 37 years. I've seen up close exactly what's going on there. I have been warning people for 37 years that what was over there was coming this way. And now it's here. And I agree with you. We've got to fight it for all we're worth. It's not only a danger to women's rights. Nobody has any rights under Islamic law. Nobody. And it's a serious problem, and people don't realize they need to wake up to what a huge and present danger this is.
Amen. Phil, thank you very much for your call. I think it's hard for us to recognize it unless somebody's done what you've done, unless you've seen it in these other countries, and you've seen once they get to the point of control. Like, they play the game, man. They're nice until they have the authority, and once they drop the hammer, that's it. And I get. In fact, Phil, are you still with me? I was going to ask you a question. Yeah. When you were over there for that long, what was the difference in what they call moderate Muslims and those who really wanted to live by Sharia law and enforce it? I mean, did you see some of both?
Some of them were more moderate. Some of them were not necessarily in your face with it. But the problem is, what I always tell people, and they forget this, no matter whether people are, quote, nice Muslims or mean Muslims, they all believe the same Quran. And the Quran is the one that incites them to kill the infidels, anyone who refuses to convert to Islam. That's the bottom line. Whether the people seem nice or not, whether they apply all of the Islamic laws or not, the point is they are supporting a system and a religion that says you are to get rid of and eliminate these people who do not believe in Allah. Period.
Yeah. You just explained it exactly right. That's part of the game plan, right? They say they're peaceful Muslims or they're moderate Muslims or whatever, but it doesn't change their their overall game plan, their long-term game plan. And we don't have to guess about that. Like, we don't even have to just limit our opinion of that, our position on that, to the Quran or the writings that came later or any of that stuff from 1,000 years ago. Or it's actually just look at what they're doing for real in Europe and in Australia, and then and look and listen to what they're saying. I mean, a lot of these imams don't hide it. They actually say on camera what their plan is and what they're going to do. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. That's where we are. Okay, let's go to that was Texas. Let's go over to Mississippi. Mississippi, it's Ed is up next. Ed, go ahead.
Hey, brother, I appreciate y'all so much. I
Yes,
love
sir.
AFR. That's why I support it. But I'm asking you a couple questions. Back during the Revolutionary War, we had pastors standing behind the pulpit in black coats. And after they get through with the sermon, they go out and help fight for our freedom. And then these pastors today are not even sounding the alarm. Like in Ezekiel, they call us to be watchmen, and we're not even getting the warning, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, how would you handle a friend that claims to be a pastor but votes Democrat?
Wow. Well, we need another hour, my friend. I'll say in short, I'll put it this way. Yes, the Black Road Regiment in the founding era was the greatest threat to Great Britain and their control and their tyranny over us. And the king knew that. That's why they nicknamed it the Black Robe Regiment, and it was because they were preaching liberty. They were preaching the just war theory. They were teaching and discipling Christians to understand from a biblical perspective, you have a right of self-defense. From a biblical perspective, you have a right to reject the violation of the agreement that King George has done. And so, it was pastors, no question about it, man. James Caldwell, Reverend Muhlenberg, you had Jonas Clark right there at Lexington was the pastor that for 10 years had been preaching those sermons on liberty. It led to the shot heard around the world. It is shameful, honestly, man. It's shameful that so few pastors reflect that today. And like you're saying, they don't even give the warning, let alone march into battle, let alone, the ones that run for office, praise God, I'm thankful for them. Or they get behind candidates in their community. They're actual salt and light. So in other words, they're actually going out and helping to preserve the culture, preserve the meat, if you will, and shine the light of truth. There are too few. Now, we're working to expand that. We've got Liberty Pastors. We've got Turning Point Faith. We've got these different organizations we work with and give the intellectual ammunition to by giving them our biblical citizenship courses. So we're growing that. We're expanding the Black Road Regiment once again today. But if you've got a friend that's a pastor and votes Democrat, you have to say, why do you even vote party in the first place? You should be voting Bible. You should be a Christocrat. You should be saying, okay, which candidate most stands for biblical values? Now, the answer to that question right now in the current climate and culture is almost 100% of the time going to be Republican, not Democrat, because you no longer have the biblical Democrats. You used to have some biblical Democrats. You used to have, Democrats that were, most of the time against abortion, against gay marriage, against, allowing for an invasion of our country, all the things that biblically you can absolutely make a case for. There aren't many of those anymore. Maybe locally you can find some, depending on where you are in the country. I don't know of any in Congress anymore. It used to be a few, Mike McIntyre and a few other Democrats that were biblical and stood against a radical left-wing part. But the leftists, the Marxists, the communists took over the Democrat Party. So in Congress, in D.C., as far as I know, there are none. Doesn't mean all Republicans are either, but it definitely is a majority of Republicans that stand for those things. They at least campaign for those things, get elected saying they're for those things. A lot of them do sell us down the river once they get there, no doubt about that. But overall, as a Christian, I think the right perspective is to not be Republican first or Democrat first. You have to be Bible first, and then which party is the best vehicle for being a good Christian. Here's the way Charles Finney put it in the Second Great Awakening. He said, politics is part of a religion in a country such as this, and Christians must do their duty to their country as a part of their duty to God. God will bless or curse this nation according to the course Christians take in politics. What he's saying is, as a Christian, you live out your faith in every area of your life, in your family, in your business, in your neighborhood, and yes, in your state and your nation, meaning your politics. And politics is nothing more than how you treat your neighbor. And the Bible has a lot to say about how you treat your neighbor. So as a Christian, you don't have the choice of not being involved. To not be involved is to be silent and therefore sin. To not be involved is to be the wicked and slothful servant and abdicate the responsibility and authority that God's given you in a free nation. To not be involved is to deny obeying everything that Jesus commanded, which is what the Great Commission actually is. And to not be involved means that you're ignoring Jesus saying, occupy until I return. You're ignoring Jesus saying, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's. You're not doing your job as Caesar because you are Caesar in America. Like it or not, you've been given the responsibility to govern yourself and your community and your nation. And so to that pastor that's voting Democrat, I would say, number one, you're ignoring the fact that the Democrat Party purposely, publicly announces that they are anti-biblical. So how do you reconcile that? Well, because I don't like mean tweets, or because President Trump is not treating the sojourner the same that he's treating everybody else. Well, first of all, you're wrong on that. He's treating the sojourner exactly the same as everybody else and saying you have to follow the law like everybody else. Just like in the Bible where it says that, those sojourners were obeying the law where they were. And so anyway, you got to take them to first say, what's the Bible say our position should be on these issues? And then which party is the vehicle that is helping those biblical positions win the day? And then which candidates within that party are best standing for those issues and that righteousness. That's a really long answer, brother. I'm sorry I took so long to answer your question, but I hope that helps a little bit. All right, let's go to Jane in Oregon, all the way out to Oregon. Jane, you're up next.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for calling.
Listen, there's two things I thought I'd mention. If somebody really wants to get an eyeful of Islam, there is a documentary out called Among the Believers. It's Among the Believers, and it was made in Pakistan. And boy, oh boy, will you see some stuff. Anyway, I was in the East there when I was about 17, and I was in India for a while, and then we took a boat, and we stopped at Karachi, and I had a friend there, so I called her and said, come pick us up and show us around. And she said, oh, yeah, okay, we'll be right over, but don't wear anything with a low back because somebody might cut you.
Oh, my goodness. Don't worry. They were going to literally threaten you with violence, basically.
Oh, yeah. They would. Yeah. Well, she didn't say they threatened me. She said they'd come up and cut me. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that wasn't a very low back either. I mean, it was, it didn't go like below the bra line or anything. It was just a scoop back in the back like it would have been in the front, but that was the popular style at that time.
Yeah. Well, and then you get to a country. And this was where? You were where? I'm sorry.
That was in Karachi.
In Karachi.
Pakistan.
Man. Oh, it's you talk about lack of tolerance. That's what's so funny about this is that they say we're supposed to be tolerant of Islam when Islam is the least tolerant of anything out there. Man, Jane, thanks for calling in. God bless you. Appreciate your call. Let's go to let's see, who did I have up next? Vin in Oklahoma. Go ahead, Vin.
Hi, Rick. Just 4 objectives of Islam that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, go for it.
The 4 objectives of Islam is, number 1, is their objective is to infiltrate.
Right.
Number 2 is to populate. Number 3 is to dominate. And the last one is never, ever, ever to assimilate.
Yeah, they definitely are not going to assimilate. My colleague Krish that I was mentioning runs our institute and spoke the other night at this thing. He says that they immigrate infiltrate, as you said, indoctrinate, and then dominate. And yeah, they will never assimilate. That's part of why it just seems simple to me. It seems like common sense to say, if you're not a net positive to America and you're not coming here to assimilate into our culture and our values, we should not be letting you come here, even legal or illegal. But you shouldn't be allowed to come here. You got to want to assimilate and be a part of the American dream, or why would we want you here? It just doesn't make sense. Okay, let's go to Kay in Kansas. Kay, you're up next. Go ahead. Got just about a minute left here. Go.
Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah.
You're exactly right saying that we need to be biblical citizens first. And just to kind of camp a little bit on the Mississippi caller, we have a lot of churches that need reform, and that is going to take men to speak up. And you were talking to him about that he needs to talk to that pastor. But it is an operation that has to be done. And it's going to take more than one man. In small congregations, you're going to have 2 or 3, men. And then, go on up, depending on the size of the church. But, the pastors there are many that are not preaching salt and light, which is, salt is prudence, that is wisdom in practice with an element of caution to be careful to not cause by your actions or your inactions evil. And then salt, we all know that, light, we all know that means spiritual light, but it also in the Greek means moral light. And pastors are not teaching these things. They're not teaching that men need to get involved in government.
That's right.
And but it's going to take the men in you won't find in the Bible anywhere where Paul says, well, go find another church, or Peter or John. Paul said, get the wicked men out. There has to be.
I'm so sorry to cut you off, Kay. I hear the bumper music. I'm out of time. But I will say, yes, absolutely. And take a group in your church do a biblical citizenship class in your home, get them fired up, and then go to the pastor and help correct them and get them on track and teaching these things. That's the best way to do it. I've seen it happen. It works. All right, out of time for today, folks. I'm Rick Green. You've been listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.